Broadcasting live on the Ops Lens app, iHeartRadio, Mojo 50 Radio, and online worldwide at thepcradioshow.com.
Thepcradioshow.com, brand new website. Make sure that you get over there. It's absolutely beautiful. It makes this low-budget afternoon podcast look like we actually have something going on. What's up? My name is Stu. This segment of the PC Radio Show brought to you by American Pride Roasters Coffee. Make sure to get over there, AmericanPrideRoastersCoffee.com, the best coffee in the world. I drink it. That means that you should too. For Richard Leonard, I'm in here. Richard not able to fill his co-hostal duties this week because he is proudly serving our country as a member of the United States Army Minnesota National Guard. He's a Red Bull. He's a Purple Heart recipient. He's gone at training for our first week. The technical difficulties inside of the studio have been absolutely unbelievable. The first 3 days of this show, intern boy screwing everything up. He's a miserable failure. Always has been, always will be. Don't even attempt to talk to him. Things like that just piss me off. Good afternoon. Welcome to PC Radio. My name is Stu Peters. So the Biden campaign just announced that Kamala Harris will be running for president of the United States. And we can all acknowledge that we all knew months ago about Biden's handler's intent to select a radical progressive as his running mate. I mean, he told us that. So here we go. Kamala Harris is it, and this doesn't come as a surprise to us at all, being that Biden's adult daycare workers formulated a speech just the other day where the oblivious, vulnerable elderly man said, "I'm going to go down as the most progressive president in the history of the United States." So it's the California liberal versus Donald Trump in the general election, because we're all 100% positive that within months of a tragic event like a Biden election, the dementia diagnosis will be announced by Mrs. Biden as she uses 6 boxes of tissue to get through a canned speech about how the pervert can't fulfill the duties of the office of the presidency. So could it be President Kamala Harris? Well, let's talk about that. And not for too long, because I'm trying desperately to hold on to the 12 of you that are listening. I enjoy your company. But I think it's important that we point out a few things that we all know about the California raisin. First of all, wasn't she the California top cop? Didn't she just hysterically laugh, intern boy, about a question of her weed usage? She puts on this big front that she's cool with the whole ganja scene. But in reality, she's known in California for putting roughly 1,500 people behind bars for marijuana crimes. We've discussed this on the show the last couple of days, and everyone knows that every major democratically run city in this country is literally burning. They're on fire. Well, violent protesters confront cops and confront city officials while regurgitating the mainstream media's grossly false narrative about systemic racism in law enforcement. So the answer for Biden is a cop? It's well documented that Kamala Harris has a record that's inconsistent with her claims. Her claims to be some sort of champion for blacks. Her 27 years as a prosecutor helped contribute to the what the media calls the disproportionate imprisonment of African-American men in California. Remember, that was her. But don't talk about that now. The media was happy to tear her to shreds after they went all in on the Biden train, but now she's going to be off limits and the contradiction is going to begin. The media won't even blink. It doesn't matter that just weeks ago she was in Biden's face claiming he was a racist. So is he still? Does Kamala Harris still think Biden's a racist? Because I feel like, intern boy, I feel like she said that he was a racist. I feel like she was on national television and said Biden was a racist. Do these people really think Americans forget? They're insulting my intelligence, your intelligence, the intelligence of American voters. Voters who might not have much. People going to the ballot boxes may not have a pot to piss in. They may not have a car. They may not have a high-paying job and some permanent posh career. They may not have a house on top of a hill in some gated community with armed guards. They might not have a dollar in cash to their name, and they're suffering behind predatory rates on some ridiculous credit card that'll ultimately be included in the bankruptcy after the divorce. They may have lost everything, but what snakes like Kamala Harris put aside and what they forget is what Americans do have: a vote. And on November 3rd, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor or a broke laborer struggling to pay the premiums for the Obamacare shitty bronze plan that you're forced to pay under the threat of fines and imprisonment. Because on November 3rd, the single dad scooping horse shit on some farm in southern Texas struggling to pay child support has the same amount of votes as the trust fund baby with the liberal arts major studying at their local Starbucks, bitching about how they had to step over some dirty man on the sidewalk to get in. Who, by the way, is a veteran of the United States military that was left behind by the same socialist programs that a pseudo-aristocrat like Kamala Harris forced down his throat. I mean, we all know that politics gets dirty. You and I know that. We know that just as quickly as a bronco will buck, an enemy will become a comrade. These self-proclaimed nobles have no problem shaking hands today and shitting on each other tomorrow. But in a country that's so divided, a country that's so obsessed, a country that insists that every disagreement or any of our differences is automatically hashtagged racist, how can the adamant declaration by the California Raisin that Biden, the crypt keeper, is the ultimate racist just be shoved under the rug, pushed aside, forgotten about, disregarded, ignored, buried? Folks, this is interesting. And maybe I'll be called a science denier, much like when I was chastised at the inception of the China virus when I said something didn't smell quite right. I said, this looks like a power grab. The timing of this, it's all just too perfect. So let me just let this little conspiracy theory mind of mine go to work here for a minute. Maybe this is by design. Think about that. Maybe they know they can't beat him, and at the outside chance they can't cheat him. Maybe the re-election of Donald Trump is exactly what progressives are planning for. When America doesn't elect a man who vowed to make the first black woman vice president, the country will burn once again. The war that they've so longed for, the blood that they so seek, your blood, will spill into the streets as fanatical socialists proclaim that victory was just handed to Trump because America wasn't ready for a woman in the White House. Remember Hillary? A black woman in the White House. They'll fervently declare that it's because of your fear, because of your racism, because of your privilege. Biden wasn't elected because you are a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're a sexist. You're the enemy. So hearing all of this and knowing what might be coming for your city, for your neighborhood, to your doorstep, your city, your town, witnessing the devastating realities of violence against innocent civilians, against local businesses that have become staples of communities, for instance, in Minneapolis, where no doubt you've seen the media coverage of hostile and extreme takeovers of once peaceful residential areas and even occupied police precincts. I feel it's my responsibility, almost my duty, to help you, the listener, get a true, accurate, and unfiltered perspective of what's to come. And here to help us with that, a 31-year veteran of the Minneapolis Police Department, retired Army reservist after 21 years, the president of the Minneapolis Police Federation, and apparently America's most prolifically hated cop, Lieutenant Bob Kroll. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me, Stu. I mean, I can't thank you enough for your honorable and distinguished service. your selfless dedication to duty. For 100% transparency and full disclosure here, Bob and I do know each other personally. We've known each other for many years. I've worked in the private sector of law enforcement as the lead investigator at a bail enforcement agency. And so Bob and I have had the opportunity to get to know each other. I'm a big supporter of the Minneapolis Police Department. I'm in the Federation often, spending way too much money, by the way, and buying awesome apparel, mugs, anything I can do to support the department. I know you're busy and your time is valuable to me, so let's get right to it, Bob. It's no secret that members of violent radical groups of criminals have threatened more damage to the city every day. Their list of demands keeps on growing and now includes your resignation, chanting how you need to go because you're just the face of the enemy at the Minneapolis Police Department. To those people, Bob, you say what?
Well, to those people, I wonder if they can realize how hypocritical they are. This is the group on the left that preaches tolerance from the left, the tolerant left. How long have we heard that phrase? But when they don't get their way, when people don't see things their way, they resort to violence in the form of, threats and intimidation, assaults, arsons, damage to property, even bomb threats. If you don't see things their way, or you stand up to them, or you stand up for others to them, you become their target. And yes, they've identified me. The left has selected me as the scapegoat for all of this because I represent the police officers and ensure their due process. They want to blame Chauvin being on the job against me. That the reason he's still on the job is I kept his job. The reality is Chauvin never needed the Federation. He has like 17 complaints, and 2 of them resulted in oral reprimands over minor things like report writing or language. And the other ones were all unfounded and not sustained. So I've never done anything to protect Derek Chauvin's job in his nearly 20-year career. I've had no involvement. I have no involvement in the officers other than ensuring their due process rights are made. They have attorneys representing them. I'm out of this process, yet they've targeted me. And that just shows how naive and ignorant they are.
Of course they are. And ignorance has no boundaries today. The order came from somewhere to give up the precinct. The second home of the 3rd Precinct officers was lit on fire while it was occupied by cops. Where did the order to retreat come from?
Well, that's a finger-pointing thing between the political leadership. Now, whether the mayor was in charge or the governor was in charge, we don't know. And we were hoping for a thorough investigation to find out where, because we had obviously officers there. The 3rd Precinct was near and dear to me. I served there as a patrol officer, served there as a patrol sergeant for several years in each capacity. And that was a great group of cops there, and they have been just treated horribly since this came out. The decisions were being made from within the command post, and who was actually giving the orders, was relaying them. We don't know. It was very convoluted. Whenever the administration gets involved, in cases like this, you don't know who's ultimately making the call, but I would say it would go directly to the chief. He would have final authority. Mm-hmm. Now, whether the mayor was telling the chief what to do or the governor was telling the mayor to tell the chief what to do, that's where it all gets lost to. So it's anybody's guess from there.
Right. Listening to radio traffic from those few nights of riots, we know that these weren't peaceful protests. We know that because we heard the screams for help from officers who were being attacked. They were literally taking mortar fire. I never thought I would ever in my life hear radio traffic like that in Minneapolis. It was unprecedented. It was an historical moment. Why no media coverage about that?
That's a great question. They were shot at with live rounds on several different occasions in the riots and the days that followed. And peaceful, look no further than over $500 million in damage done and 1,500 businesses destroyed. That doesn't occur during a peaceful protest. Who are they trying to fool?
Yeah.
Why is that not reported? They wanted to talk about, most of the media outlets wanted to talk about unfounded and not sustained cases that I had from, 15, 20 years earlier. That was more relevant than the damage done. So you got to wonder. I blame it on political leadership and the media fanning the flames and not getting the truth out. The media used to have a job to search for the truth, uncover the truth, report whatever they found. But now it's to the point that they're trying to form an opinion and report what meets the agenda and the narrative they want to sell.
Yeah, I mean, the news used to be, like Walter Cronkite, you turn on the TV and they read you the news. There was no subjective commentary. That was left for dinner table discussions between, dad and mom and little Johnny. I mean,
you bet.
It's just, it's.
You bet. If it doesn't fit the narrative that is being pushed, it doesn't make it. And it's sad. It's a sad times for journalism.
Speaking of journalism, if there are any left amongst us, the media reports what they're calling an uptick in crime in Minneapolis. That's how they frame it. That's what they tell us. But is that true, or is there really a different reality? Are we seeing not an uptick, but an explosion in violent crimes?
We're seeing an explosion. Yeah. We are seeing an explosion. And, we've had 44 homicides to date. Now, last night, overnight, we had 2 shootings. The night before, we had 3 shootings. And what's not getting reported is the vast majority of shootings. In the prior several years we've had, there was probably a person shot maybe 2 of every 3 nights or 3 of every 4 nights. Now we're getting 2 or 3 per night. And that's the difference, and no one's picking up on it. And by and large, they're using small caliber handguns. They're poor shots. They're winging them. And we've got excellent advanced life-saving measures. So the predominant theme is victim shot, arm or leg, non-life-threatening injuries, uncooperative, will not tell who did what. And for the large majority, these are all black-on-black crime, and they don't want to delve into it.
What?
Where are the voices of these people in Black Lives Matter as it pertains to these 44 criminal homicides? No doubt they are criminal homicides that have occurred this year. They're all focused on the one encounter that police were dispatched to a felony, and that everybody is fixated on this incident.
Obsessed.
It will come out in trial, but where's the outrage in all of these other undoubtedly criminal murders? Nothing. Nothing.
I mean,
I bet they can't say a name of a victim.
Look in Chicago. And we don't have to look much farther than Minneapolis to see what we've always talked about that was going on in Chicago. I've heard a lot of people call, the North Side Little Chicago. Whether that's a fair analogy or not, I guess I can't say. I do know in my experience working on the North Side for the last 13 years that certainly there are a lot of Chicagoans and Chicago IDs there. I speculate that it's because of the Minnesota welfare system. But, in Chicago, there was recently like 4 kids shot, right? I mean, these are young, innocent children. It was a 2-second blurb on the news.
Right.
But here we are.
Where are the activists? Where are the protesters? Where is the media? All of these lives that are being lost are important, and they're silent, all except for the one that was the police encounter. And there's something wrong with society when you think about it.
Do you think that there's organized groups of rioters and inciters of violence that are not from Minneapolis, but who've descended upon us to capitalize on the Floyd incident?
In talking with supervisors that were in charge of several operations during the rioters, they broke it down into a few different groups, and one of them were highly organized, and they compared them to military units that had radio comms, and they were doing a lot of the large-scale violence, and then they had opportunists that were just thieves that came from, to back up the first group, they described as, yes, they were organized, they were from other places, commingling with those from here. Not everybody, the politicians wanted you to believe that we were taken over by an occupation force. No one was from Minneapolis, and we found out that was blatantly false. After they found it, they looked through the booking records, and 85% of them were from here committing violent acts. But there were some organized leaders of this that were from outside the state of Minnesota, joining those here in that aspect. The other aspect were opportunist thieves. And they were locally. They were driving Minnesota plates, and they were going in and looting after the damage had been done and places were on fire and doors and windows kicked in.
Yeah.
They went in and stole. And then you had your peaceful protesters that were a part of it, and then the violent ones mixed in with those. So you had different subgroups of them. And I think even some of the peaceful protesters were not from here because they're getting paid to do it.
Right. And I think a lot of those peaceful protesters probably defecated themselves and left rather quickly when this thing started to escalate. I mean, it was, by all senses of the word, a scary situation. And it continues to be so volatile on the streets of Minneapolis while the calls to defund police are there, which we'll get to. But going back to like identifying the people that were responsible for this, because, people want to know who's destroying my city. There are a lot of good people that live in the city of Minneapolis, in every community in the city of Minneapolis. I've met them. I know them. They're wonderful people, wonderful business owners. And they want to know the unrest it's not the heartbreaking thing is not the unrest between minority criminals or criminals in general and the cops. That's always been there. It's always going to be there. What is really disturbing is the heartbreak that you see on the faces of good everyday Minneapolis business owners and citizens. These people can't go shop at their favorite local staple market anymore because it was torched.
That is what's heartbreaking, and what shows up at a lot of these protests are these uninformed little white folks in their 20s that have been it's been ingrained in their brain all through the education system their whole life, and they really have a belief in this cause, but they don't realize that these moves to defund and have the police not take action and stand off and de-escalate, it hurts the members in the minority portions of the city.
Yeah.
They don't understand our world. When I say our world, it's the police interacting with those folks that live there and appreciate the police and want more of it. Those people are saying, hey, these protesters are not our voice.
Right.
The people that live and work in Minneapolis and now finding themselves stuck there in some of the most violent times they've ever had in my time, in my 30-plus years there, watching the police being taken away and their response times get longer and longer. That's who they're victimizing.
Yeah, without a doubt. There are unconfirmed reports, and I don't know how much you can go into this or if you even have any of this information, but we had an email from a listener that knew that you were going to be on the show. There's unconfirmed reports on social media that originate from elected city officials claiming that the real insiders were actually members of white supremacy groups like the KKK. Is there any evidence that there were any groups like this responsible for escalating the riots?
Not to my knowledge, Stu. In my position, I don't really dig into that stuff, though, so I'm not really qualified to answer, but I have never heard of any of that.
You don't have to give up your sources, but I mean, I'm sure that there's some scuttlebutt around the department.
Yeah, I have not heard anything to that order, but for the most part, these riots were live on television for everyone to watch and see what was going. It was going several nights, all night live. Pick your channel. There was live viewing of what occurred there. So I don't know what politicians said that, but I don't believe that was the case.
Wait a minute. You mean it's possible that a politician said something other than the truth?
Trying to form a narrative again and looking for play on it, but no. The people, our investigators, is understaffed and overworked as they are doing a great job arresting and charging a lot of these people with the arsons that occurred and working through damage to property. A lot of people are getting charged in this stuff. So we'll see. The booking records will become available and people can see if they have any affiliations and if so, with who.
I have some other things that I want to talk to you about. Are you cool sticking around just through the break, and we'll try to work through some of these some of these technical difficulties and come on back. All right, Lieutenant Bob Kroll is on with us. We're happy to have him. We know how busy he is. Getting this information for you is, I think, really important. PC Radio, coming right back. Stick around. Don't go anywhere.
Stucci, but they'll have to do. The low-budget answer for your deranged listening habits. Stu and Rich. Patriotically correct radio. Patriotically correct, politically biased, emotionally disturbed. On behalf of all of us at Mojo, we apologize. Stewart's and Richard, PC Radio.
The Democrats are lousy politicians. They really are. Horrible policies, open borders, crime is fine.
Welcome to the future, bitches.
They wake up every morning to stars, stripes, guns, and carbon emissions. Hey, who farted? Stu and Rich. Patriotically correct radio.
Coming back with Lieutenant Bob Kroll, the Minneapolis Police Department. He is a veteran of the Minneapolis Police Department, as well as the president of the Minneapolis Police Federation. He's also a veteran of our U.S. military. He was in the Army. This section of PC Radio, this half, brought to you by Johnson Jewelers. Johnson Jewelers in Woodbury, Minnesota. You know what? You know what the greatest thing about Johnson Jewelers is the custom jewelry. All right? It doesn't matter if you live in Stillwater, Minnesota, or if you live in Glen Burnie, Maryland. From east to west, north to south, and internationally, globally, as well as around the world. A quick visit to the website, a few emails, a little bit of phone conversation, and the people over at Johnson Jewelers can make something for you that is absolutely beautiful and one of a kind. You can't, it can't be duplicated because it was made at Johnson Jewelers and it was made just for you. We want to get right back into this deal with Bob Kroll. We've been talking about the obvious Minneapolis situation that's going on that actually sparked national outrage. And I mean, Portland is lost. Seattle is gone. These cities are just burning. The Minneapolis Police Department 3rd Precinct burned. We talked a little bit about that. Bob, were there alternative tactical measures or plans that would have saved the precinct?
Oh, absolutely. And it starts with much more rapid deployment with the National Guard. I laid this out in my views in talking with elected officials, what should have and could have been done. And the bottom line is the mayor didn't activate the Guard until midnight Thursday night, Friday morning. They were told to vacate the precinct by noon on Thursday, and they waited 12 hours to actually deploy the Guard, and they did such small numbers. If we would have utilized the National Guard correctly, you should have had at a minimum of 2,000 troops, and it would have been handled much better with 3,000, and all they would have been doing is lining the streets and protecting property.
And they should have been armed with live ammo.
Yes, of course. But they would have just been on a property protection mission lined on the busy streets where all the damage occurred. That would allow the Minneapolis Police Department to do their job in patrol operations and stop destruction, make arrests, supplemented by Hennepin County, who's there to do rapid processing for booking and getting the agitators hauled out of there. In booking vans, transported, processed, and taken from the scenes, and then mutual aid with the aid of the state patrol and other agencies that were able to do it. But it was a complete failed leadership. It was an exercise in failed leadership from the governor to the mayor to the chief, you name it. It was a terrible failure.
And now, the city, the taxpayers are forced to balance the burden of the monetary cost of either repairing or replacing the third precinct, alternative housing in the interim for all those squad cars, all those resources, and all of those bodies, all the personnel. That's got to be pretty expensive.
And Stu, there has been no even leads and horrible communication from the administration on this, on what's going to happen. These officers are living they're housed in horrible conditions at the convention center. At least the convention center is owned by the city. They had a place to put them. But how can you run any effective police operations in a temporary facility like that? They're finding hitting walls wherever they go to replace the precinct, and there's no plan and there's no communication on what they're doing. A bulk of the people that you're seeing leave on these retirements now are from the third precinct after they were caught inside of there and fled for their lives outside the precinct. Part of the problem was they weren't allowed to use less lethal munitions. They weren't allowed to use gas munitions early on. They didn't have. You heard the mayor say over and over, we didn't have the numbers. We didn't have the numbers. Well, guess what? The chief came to you last year and laid out a plan to increase the size of the department by 400 officers over the course of 5 years, and you gave him nothing. The mayor and city council gave him nothing. They were going to approve 14 was what it was at. But our authorized strength is 888, and we've already lost 100 of those people from that. So we're down below 800 officers right now.
You said something interesting, and this has been kind of a narrative across the country from police administrations, touting this almost as like an honorable thing or the success of a mission that we didn't use less lethal munitions. Why? Why?
We had our supervisors on the scene calling for the ability to use more gas, more less lethal, and they were denied. No, not unless they're inside the perimeter. They were back and forth on all of that. And the problem is when you hand it off to administrative types that are calling it from the comfort of the command center, they don't realize what's going on in there. More importantly, a lot of our police administration does not have tactical experience. They weren't those kind of cops, if you will.
Right.
When you have an administration that is full of your community engagement officers, your SROs, your beat officers, your investigators, when it goes bad in a city like that, you need tactical leaders to be in charge of the operation, and you can't have the admin types overrule those tactical leaders. That was the big problem.
It's no surprise that in Minnesota, namely Minneapolis, there's a failure or a breakdown in the selection and the promotion to leadership positions like that. Over there on Summit Avenue in the governor's mansion, you have a guy who was a miserable commander, or a miserable boss rather, in the Minnesota Army National Guard. I've talked to people about it. He abandoned his troops and now is abandoning Minnesota. But hey, at the end of the day, orders are orders. The precinct is gone now. Can you describe the morale of third precinct officers that were forced to stand by and watch as their sanctum burned? What are they like now?
I describe the morale of not only the third precinct officers, but the entire city of officers as, without a doubt, rock bottom, the lowest I have ever seen it. They're either retiring early, they're looking to get out. They're applying everywhere to other agencies to leave Minneapolis. They look at Minneapolis as a sinking ship. And I just reached full retirement age last week, so I can truly go. And with my years of service, we're down to like 15 people that have been on the job longer than me, and people are going, "What do you stand for? Are you crazy?" But there's things I want to see through yet. But no, it's a sinking ship, and it's too bad for the citizens that live there and the businesses. You add to that these businesses that have been completely destroyed with the defund the police movement and the COVID and people realizing that, hey, we can work from home, we don't have to rent space or buy space or things like that, it's going to be problematic to get that tax base coming back. When you add all these factors together, a lot of these businesses are going to realize, hey, we can operate more effectively remote. But then more importantly, the ones around Lake Street that have been destroyed from one end of the city to the other, why would you rebuild there when you know there's a movement around to take away the police department?
Right. It's amazing to me that a common sense military veteran and longtime cop, along with some half-assed bounty hunter and low-budget podcast guy, can see the common sense in that, but that leaders that are elected to rid of the possibility of these economic breakdowns, of these tremendous failures by police administration, they don't see it, or they do see it, and this is by design. What are your thoughts?
I think they realize it, they see it, but they're selling their souls to maintain their position. And our chief has came out against me and said, and prior to this, to back up, we did have a very good working relationship in calm times. He was the best to work with union-wise, but they created a narrative that the police federation, namely me, were to blame for everything wrong in the Minneapolis Police Department. And he's came out and made a statement on national television that I'm going to be on the wrong side of history and he's going to be on the right side of history. Well, I've had a proud career of 31 and a half years, did the right thing for the police department and the citizens there. And right now he's riding the ship down into the underwater. He's riding it down, and who's going to be on the right side of history when you have a police department that's completely depleted, morale is completely deflated, and you don't have enough resources to do the job. They're downsizing specialty units, things like the Violent Criminal Apprehension Team, I'm sure that you know well, that go out and get the people that are doing the murders, the robberies, the rapes. They get them for the investigators that have solved these crimes. They find these people. They just disbanded that unit to put those officers in a patrol function.
Right.
So who's going to do that work? It's gone. But he's touting this. The chief is touting this. I'm going to be on the right side of history, and the federation has to decide if they want to be on the right side of history or wrong side of history. He threw that out there, and I'm like, no, this is going down under your watch. And at some point, you have to stand up to the politicians that are making these horrible decisions and ramming it down your throat and go, no, I'm a 30-plus year police veteran, and I'm going to stand up for what's right and wrong, and I'm going to go public with how you're ruining this city. And if you don't, and if you don't like it, and you want to remove me. But I'm going to stand up to you. But what they're doing, Stu, is they're towing the line to maintain their jobs, and every officer on that department sees it.
So the idea here is we want a safer city. We want a Minneapolis that's equal for all. We don't want rapes. We don't want murders. We don't want robbing, stealing, killing, looting, burning. So the plan here to accomplish that is we're going to reduce the amount of cops on the street. We're going to restrict the cops that are on the street from actually arresting somebody for these deals. When they're arrested, it's going to be a catch and release program, a sign and release bail. When they don't show up for court, we're going to bribe them with an ice cream cone at Dairy Queen if they promise to come back, and we'll maybe send them to the ball game with mommy. And the emboldened, embrazened entitlement attitude of lawbreakers who are career criminals. We're not talking about people who make a mistake in life, right? We're talking about the actual evil, repeated doers of crime, victimization of people, real crimes over and over again. They're dedicated to doing it. It's the idea that the reduction of enforcement roles can somehow make that better. Do you know what the mentality is from that side of the perspective, because I'm failing to make a connection with how people can become safer with less protection.
It makes absolutely no sense, but it fits the narrative that they're trying to push, that the police are the problem and they need more de-escalation, more training, more things like this. And it's a political agenda. You see it in all the major cities. They're going through it right now. And do you want to live in a world with what's going on in Portland and Seattle? Because that's coming here. It's all the major cities, and they want to blame all of this stuff on, racial disparity and institutional racism and stuff like that. But look at all of the city governments and in there, and it's been decades and decades. Every one of these cities that's going to hell, it's decades and decades of complete Democrat leadership in power there. So
they want to blame
that party.
Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
It's that party that's blaming on institutional racism. Well, how does that happen when you've got DFL council, DFL control, and you've got black police chiefs in these cities, and you've got black mayors in these cities, and on and on.
Right.
But it's still the racism thing. It's a false narrative. That's
much like
narrative.
Donald Trump is racist, right? Albeit there is nothing he's ever said, no evidence of such racism, but he is. He's a racist.
My theory on that, Stu, is when your argument on the left, when you run out of facts to support your argument and you're losing a debate severely, then you just go to the standby. Well, you're racist. You're
right.
Sexist. You're
sexist,
homophobe.
Yeah. You're
just
a bigot.
throw that name out there and divert because you're losing in the factual argument. So that's what you come to. You just fall down, and it diverts everybody off how your debate is being lost because you don't have supportive facts. And these are all baseless claims. They're baseless about the president, baseless about me. It's just, well, he's a racist. They've nicknamed me KKK Kroll. And where does this come from? Can you give me one complaint out of my 31.5-year history where I've had any type of racial anything? The answer is no. And the ones that they point to were investigations that the allegation was there, and in fact they found out the accuser lied. And if they would dig in, and these are media outlets, every mainstream media outlet has called me out on these things. I'm going, well, here's the case number, read it, and then can you clear my name? Oh, then it's crickets. It is the false narratives. They live on false narratives,
and then they run away. And then with their little, I compare them to like little ADHD rats, right? Well, that's nothing anymore because we were disproven on that. So now let's go find. Oh, look over there. There's another racist. Let's go cover this. It's baseless. So anyway, speaking of Trump, I'm showing our viewers right now on the OpsLens app a picture of you. Donald Trump shaking your hand, putting his other hand on your shoulder, the two of you looking at each other on stage at a Trump rally. There you are in the Cops for Trump shirts. What an honor. I mean, how cool was that? Tell us about that.
It was awesome. And again, to see what this president is going through and then the endless and baseless attacks on him is completely unwarranted. I've got to tell you, him, the vice president, his son, Eric, I had the honor to meet all of them, and they were the nicest people, the most respectful of people of law enforcement, myself, and there were many other police labor leaders that were with me. 10 of us were brought up on stage, but not just them, but everyone on their staff were the nicest, most genuine people you could ever imagine. And to see what this poor guy is going through, and let's be honest, he doesn't need any of this.
No,
he could be on a golf course every day of his life. He's got a beautiful wife. He could be doing whatever.
That's right.
He's doing this for America, and they have not. He's been completely under attack in every way, shape, and form, and how people can't see through that. Do you think that hardcore Republicans wanted to work under the Obama administration? But they got to work. It wasn't a complete diversion like this has been that the poor guy's gone through under the last 4 years. It's despicable.
And you're wearing the You're right about all of that. And so the answer is a dementia patient who likes to touch little girls and a liar who says that she's black, but she's actually Jamaican and Indian and whatever the narrative fits today. She's down with smoking pot, but jails people who do. And it's just, this thing is going to get very entertaining, Bob. Grab your popcorn and and watch because, and I'm telling you, when Trump secures victory in November, on November 4th, your cops better be ready. Speaking of cops, you're wearing the Cops for Trump shirt. These were sold at the Minneapolis Police Federation. I know this because I foolishly volunteered to on my Facebook page, hey, anybody who wants one of these things, let me know. And for 3 weeks, I was a shirt runner. I didn't mind helping out because it went to a noble cause. Can you tell us about that? All the donations.
You can order them online, and we ship them out, and we still got plenty available. We certainly thought, pre-COVID, we would have this being I see it as a battleground state. I hope it is. We've been blue for years. I think people are waking up, but I thought he'd be coming back for a few more rallies, but COVID changed that. But they are available, www.mpdfederation.com, and you can order those shirts online. What we did with the proceeds, it made the Liberals' head spin because we gave it to our charitable arm, and we did things in various things throughout the community. Gave back. We did what we called Christmas giving campaign and 12 Days of Christmas, and we sent a couple thousand to various charitable organizations throughout the city that actually are council members and mayor like. So it really made their heads explode when they saw where the money went to. So we got a double bang for our buck on that.
That's mpdfederation.com, correct?
You got it.
Okay, so I'm showing the shirt right here, Cops for Trump. I've got a couple of the hoodies. I've got, I think, 5 or 6 of the T-shirts. It really pisses people off, man, when you wear these things. It's incredible. mpdfederation.com, mpdfederation.com. The decisions will always be made by Lieutenant Bob Kroll and his people over there at the Federation to do charitable things with that money. I want to ask a question that I could get a rather quick answer to, if possible, and then I want to talk, lastly, and wrap it up with the defunding movement. I know personally several really good cops in Minneapolis. In my years of experience working up there, I have forged tremendous relationships and a few really solid friendships. We're like brothers, sisters. These people are my family. Blood wouldn't bring us closer together, period. There are a few of them that are gone. They pulled the pin. There's rumors that 200 to 400 cops could be on their way out. On the high end of those numbers, that'd be nearly half of the department making a departure. Is there any credibility to this report?
I'm hearing about 200, and yes, there's credibility. We're already down over 100. I think we've got another 100 that are coming in process in one way, shape, or form. But if you look at it, we were below our authorized strength of 888. We were running at about 870, and we've lost 100. They're already on the way out, and there's more to come. Like I said, they're looking for other cop jobs, and the scary part. But the answer is yes. We could lose a quarter to a third of our department of authorized strength, which is it's going to be horrific for that city. And even to take it further, the next step, who's going into law enforcement? When I was testing 32 years ago to go to agencies, I showed up for a test in St. Paul and Minneapolis. There was in excess of 800 people applying for, that one academy class of 35 or so. And that was the competition level. What's happened since then? In the recent years, we've only netted less than 200. Sorry, I got a thunderstorm going on here, but
I hear that.
If you heard that. But we've netted less than 200 in recent years. After this, the very scary fact for the public is who's going to want to do this job,
right.
who's going to go into it, and what does that do to your qualifications?
Yeah.
When I started, they want to look at Minneapolis cops and Minnesota cops and how bad they are. Well, when I started, it was California and Minnesota that were the only two states in the country that required a 2-year degree in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the trendsetters. Since then, the majority of the states have moved in that direction. But where is your quality if you need to field a class of 30 officers and you get 50 applicants, and some of them can't pass the background, and some of them can't pass the physical agility test.
And anybody who wants to be a cop now, there's no way they're going to pass a psych evaluation, because anybody who chooses this as a profession is nuts. The police have essentially been castrated by elected officials, namely the mayor's office, and to no fault of their own, cops in Minneapolis have become essentially useless. There's this buckling to this defund movement. Your thoughts on the defund the police stuff? Just go.
Well, first I got to tell you, the epitome of karma. And I just heard this morning, and I haven't pulled the case up to look at it. I will be calling the investigator that had it, because I just heard it through the grapevine this morning. But there was a defund the police rally, and some girl at the rally was asked if she could give a few guys a ride home post-rally. Mm-hmm. And she said, yes, sure, come on. And on the way home, they carjacked her and stole her car.
You're kidding.
So you're at a defund the police rally, and you're offered to give people a ride home from it, and on the way home, they forcibly take your vehicle. I don't know if a weapon was involved, but they took the vehicle from her. So guess what? She's got to call the police and make a police report and tell them that her car was stolen upon departing the defund the police rally. So
what a shame.
If that doesn't spell it all out for you, what does?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want police, but then you're actively telling people how bad you want to get rid of the police, and minutes later you're calling the police.
Who goes to defund police rallies? I mean, really, at the end of the day, let's just call a spade a spade. Who wants to get rid of cops? Criminals want to get rid of cops. Right. So I'm going to go as
and very naive supporters.
Yeah, a middle 20s white girls. Those are actually the people, when I'm wearing a gun and a badge, I'm not getting really a bunch of flack from black folks at all. The people that I am getting the most problems from is white girls in their 20s. Oh, F you racist. Really?
Yep.
Go lay by your dish, okay? Please. And by the way, what are you doing up here? This is not your neighborhood.
Well, and more hypocrisy to this is who's calling for the defund the police? The city council, which again, inside baseball shows that they racked up until it was uncovered by a news story. They had racked up $162,000 between 3 council members having private security with them, who they used a security outfit by a former cop that left midway through his career. That was a relative of Mayor Sharon Sales Belton, and it keeps perpetuating. They're giving money to their friends. Hey, let's have your security company protect us, and we'll build a citizens list for just the 3 of us.
And
but at the same time, we don't want police.
And nobody will ever find out about this. I got about a minute.
Will ever find out.
And I just want to, you've been a cop here in Minneapolis for 31 and a half years. You're passionate. You're knowledgeable about public safety. I can't thank you enough for being here. The protection of people is your forte. You're a pro at it. There's not much you haven't seen. We're in strange and new times. Do you think that you might, in a minute or less, do you think that you might have more influence outside of the department? Do you think you could help, or do you desire a position where your influence might be greater than your position as a lieutenant for the MPD? Do you have political aspirations?
If you have any leads to, let me know, because as I said, last Thursday I reached full retirement eligibility. So
all right.
with my years of service, like I said, there's only 15 people that have been on the job longer. So
how about
I'm not
political
ready to stop.
aspirations?
No, I think that's
all right. All right.
Political, no.
Okay. I mean, I know a lot of people that would be voting, and hey, with what's coming up on, hey man, come on. We'll talk about it. We'll go get a beer. We'll talk about it. I'll twist you.
Let's see how November goes.
All right.
The only thing I can say, honestly, conspiracy is voter fraud, and that's a whole other topic.
I had to stop the music for you to say that.
It's not being reported.
I got to get out of here. Lieutenant Bob Kroll, I only have a couple of seconds left. Thanks a lot for joining us. Boy, we love having him. Hope you'll come back again. My name is Stu for PC Radio. Happy Wednesday to everybody. Kamala Harris, that's it.
Get to know them. Grow to love them. Love to hate them. Stewie and Richie. PC Radio.